Hey guys, so today I'm going to be finishing working on these cult film paintings for this show that I'm in. I guess my topic today is how I just really feel like I want to give up on art. I've gone through like all the motions of being an artist. I've gone through the stages of people doubting me. I've gone through presenting my work at various shows. I've walked into art shows where my art was being displayed and then people like overlooking me as they're asking like friends who I've brought with me like, oh, are you the artist, to my friends, instead of like thinking or assuming that I was the artist first. And I've dealt with a lot for this passion that I've chosen to pursue. And I was talking to my coworker today, and I like working the sorts of jobs where I get to work with or be with people from all walks of life. And so the jobs that I found that give me that is being a barista. And so as I'm working these barista jobs, I get to see there's something specific about being a barista that's different from just being like a normal cashier. Working with espresso machines and all the different like syrup combinations, all those things, it attracts a different sort of person. It's typically like artists, musicians, things like that. And yeah, so barista is like my job of choice to pay for my life and all the things that I like. And I was talking to my coworker today, and she is double my age. She was a stay-at-home mom for most of her life, and all of her kids are grown now, and she's working this barista job just for fun money. And she's reached the point where she's like, I just want to live for me. Like, so much of my life has been me being a mom and taking care of kids or whatever, and then I got this job to like get me out of the house, but now I just want to live for me. And as I was talking to her, I was having like this awakening because I realized, well, also while I was talking to her, I was giving her like advice and tips on things to do and like hobbies to find and how you should pursue your passions, all that stuff or whatever. But yeah, as I was talking to her, I came to this realization that our lives were flipped. I think what I've been doing with art has been me trying to run away from what American society tells us that we need to be doing. Also, like what my church growing up told me that I needed to be doing. What the society, what America tells us that we need to be doing is, you know, when you're a kid, you go to school. If you're not the smart ones that go to college to get a career, then you need to work the low-paying jobs. You might meet your spouse or your partner there. You guys have kids, they go to school, you raise your kids, you get old, you collect your Social Security, and then you start living your life for yourself after that. I mean, that's why retirement, doesn't Social Security hit at like 65 or 67 now? Which it might be going away, but I'm not really sure about that. But yeah, you know, you live your life for the family that you've created, and then after they're gone, then you start doing your passions. Then you become the artist. Then you travel. Versus me, where I'm starting with the passion part. I skipped all the other stuff. I'm starting with the passion. And now it feels like I've reached this, what's the term? Like unmovable mountain? It's like I've reached this unmovable mountain now. And I'm just stuck at this point because I don't know what's next for me. Because as far as art goes, in order for me to advance, I have to leave my hometown. I just have to go. I can't be here. And then It's like if I give up art to get married, have kids, all that stuff, I won't have time for art until 18 years down the line. I won't have time to travel, do anything. And as this woman was talking to me, I realized that our lives were flipped because she got married, she had the kids, she lived her life for them, and now she's 50 and she's just now trying to find herself and find her passion. Versus me, 26, I found my passion. Now it's time for the rest. I guess I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Okay, I had to pause it because I realized what I was trying to say a little bit better. I feel like my life is flipped from her life because it's almost as if I'm having that midlife crisis where it's like, okay, I've got to find myself, I've got to ride a motorcycle, I've got to find a passion, I've got to do all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. But I'm having it at 26 instead of 50, which you're supposed to have the midlife crisis at 50, not at 26. So it's like me and her are in the same space, but it's almost as if she did it in the correct order because she's just now having her midlife crisis versus me who's having it way too early because I didn't do life in the order that America tells us we need to do it in. It's like I'm just losing the passion for art. I'm feeling like I'm burnt out. I'm feeling like I'm doing too much, spent way too much money. I have too many art supplies, too many canvases. I don't want to sell my work, but I need money. I'm tired of having to sell myself with my artwork, because that's the other thing. I feel like when you do things according to how society wants you to do it, so you get married, you have kids, you grow old, and then you pursue your art when you're old. I feel like older people are respected more when they do art than a young person, because you look at a young person and you're just like, oh, they haven't seen anything yet, they haven't seen the world yet, blah, blah, blah. And you kind of have to prove yourself extra if you're young. Versus when you're older, you automatically get this level of respect because people assume that you've lived a life and you've got something to say, which isn't always true. But it is kind of, the older you get, you learn more. But I've lived a life. I've lived a crazy life already, which is why I'm able to put so much into my artwork. And I don't know, I'm just confused. I don't know. I feel like I don't fit in with anyone around me because I live in the Midwest and all of the artists out here are middle-aged, older than me, late 30s to middle age to just old. And then there's me, young, also being a young Black woman. There aren't that many people where I live doing what I'm doing, and so I'm automatically just kind of pushed aside. And I'm feeling like my artwork isn't that great either. I've got to clean up this mess. I feel like I'm just sick of my life. I'm sick. I'm sick of living where I live. I'm just tired of being here. A couple weeks ago, a guy came into my job and he asked to use our phone. And he was talking to my coworker, but there's been a lot of new employees lately at my job, and so at any given moment, if someone has a question, they would usually direct it to whoever has been there the longest. So that moment, there was no manager, there barely is ever. Well, there is, but sometimes there are just days where there isn't a manager there. So if there are questions that need to be asked, they can't be answered on the spot because there's no one there. And so this guy, he was talking to my coworker and he was asking to use the phone, but he was was being weird about it, you know? He was being like real dodgy. He seemed like there's just something else going on. And it's like, I immediately stop and I'm like, what's going on? And he says, can I use the phone? And then he looks at my coworker and he's like, and you've got this smirk on your face. And then that's like, you're being hostile. So I say, okay, no, you can't, like, you need to leave. We're going to call the police. And he says it to me too. He's like, you've got this smirk on your face too. And he says that to me. And then I'm like, we're going to call the police. Like, you need to leave. And so he like bucks up at me. He like does like that. And then he grits his teeth and he walks out the door. But as he's walking out the door, he decides to yell effing N-word, hard R. He yells it in front of our full dining room of people who I know, like in my personal life. They were sitting in the dining room at that time. And he yelled that and everyone stopped. It got quiet. And at first it didn't feel like anything. There was shock immediately, but I just tried to keep doing my job. I just tried to stay doing my job. And a guy who was standing up at our checkout counter, he came up to me. He was like, I just want you to know that wasn't okay. And as he was saying that, the tears started coming and I started feeling shaky and I started feeling uncontrollable anger. And I immediately said to my coworkers, like, I need to go home. I felt like I wasn't safe. I felt like no one cared about me or could relate to me in that moment. I wasn't the only Black employee. There were like 2 other Black employees there working at the time. But they were in the back. So he wasn't yelling it at them. And the coworker that was helping him initially was Hispanic. It's like he wasn't yelling that at her. He was yelling it at me. And the impact of that, I didn't know that it would affect me that much. And again, I've said before, I live in the Midwest in a majority white area. And ever since then, I've just been feeling really uneasy. Just this scared feeling of being out in public, like thinking, is everyone secretly thinking that? Everyone who I come across, are they all holding in their slurs until I make them upset? And it's really been stuck in my head, almost like a nightmare. And then everything that's going on with the government is just adding on to that. And it's like, is there any reason to be fucking making art right now? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to do with my life. Like, I want to leave this place. I want to get out of here. Don't want to be here anymore. I don't know.